Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from today. My name is Carrie Simpson, and I'm one of the partners at Richardson & Richardson Consulting. This is our inaugural episode of the Thursday Process, which is a webinar that is focused on helping companies improve and create process. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Hosting today will be Ian Richardson, the managing partner of Richardson & Richardson. And our agenda for the day looks like this. We'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. We'll introduce everybody on the webinar today. We'll go through what we're talking about today. We'll introduce you to the process that Gavin has graciously agreed to share with us. We're going to talk about how he implemented the process and how it worked out. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the business that Gavin started recently, which is Augmentt. And then we'll go on to Q&A. So this is a relatively simple platform to learn and move around in. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a chat window. If you have questions that you'd like to ask Gavin, please go ahead and pop them into that chat window, and Ian will address them at the end of the content presentation. So we're not going to interrupt Gavin to ask him a question. Some of your questions may get answered throughout the course of the webinar. If we don't get to all the questions at the end, all of the questions are stored, and we can present them to Gavin if he'd like to answer them at the end, or email you directly with answers to anything that didn't get covered today. We have a couple of poll questions that are going to come up throughout the course of the webinar. They're going to pop up over top of the content. They're multiple choice questions, and it's going to help us create better content for this series ongoing. So please participate as honestly as you can, and it will only help us create better processes for you in the future. If you'd like to comment on anything that's being presented, there's a little icon. You can do a thumbs up or a heart or anything like that. That's not really my style, so I don't usually go in for the emojis. But yeah, on the right-hand side, you'll also see a handout. There is a process that Gavin has shared with us that you are welcome to download during the event. And as always, a little disclaimer. These are for educational purposes only. Nobody on this webinar is a lawyer or an accountant. So bear in mind that if you're watching this on demand, that this was presented in July of 2022, and it may not be as relevant as it was on July 2022. And with that, I'm going to let Ian Richardson, managing partner of Richardson & Richardson Consulting, take over.
All right. Thanks, Carrie. And hello, everyone. Hello, world. And I'm super excited and pleased to be here with Gavin Garbutt, who is the founder of 7 different businesses across multiple industries, including Enable, the industry-leading RMM solution, and Augmentt, a cybersecurity player, which I'm not going to steal Gavin's thunder when he goes through what Augmentt does. We'll do that near the end. A little bit about Gavin. He co-founded Enable 22 years ago. And for those of you who can do math, that would be 2000, right at the end of the dot-com bubble burst and before RMMs existed. He's the current chair and co-founder of Augmentt, founder of 7 successful startups, like I mentioned, CRN's 25 most influential executives, and a member of the Forbes Technology Council. Gavin, how you doing today?
Fantastic, Ian. Thanks very much for having me here.
Oh, it's our privilege. It's our privilege. Before we dive into talking about the process, which the process we're going to be talking about, if y'all are looking at this founder of 7 successful startups, Gavin's going to share with us the secret sauce that he uses to make companies and to steer companies and to make those high growth companies. But before we do that, I would be remiss to not take this opportunity. Again, you co-founded Enable back in 2000. I started my MSP in 2005, and RMMs were kind of defined in 2005. When we bought our first RMM in 2012, they were a little bit more popular, but still weren't universal. These days, I don't think there'd be anyone on the call that I could say, hey, do you know what an RMM is? And they wouldn't say, yeah, of course we do, and be able to list 10 or 20 of them. But in 2000, this technology didn't exist. It was Microsoft Systems Center, some enterprise things. Multi-tenancy was a, what are you talking about? How did you come up with the idea for Enable?
Well, it's funny. I had just got out of my last venture, which was another software company, which we successfully sold just before the dot-com crash. Phew! It's good to have a little luck in your timing. And so I was looking for my next venture, and I was at a cocktail party, and it was Christmas time. 2019, and I'm sorry, 1999. It's that long ago, and I was asking this this VAR who did about a 10 million a year turnover. I was thinking, like, what could you do to your business that would really transform it? What could you do that would just dramatically improve your operational efficiencies, your profitability as a business? And he thought about it for about half a second, and he said, "Wow," he said, "my biggest problem is I can't proactively monitor my customers' environments. So they call me up, something's not working. I send a truck out to figure out what's wrong. Then I have to send the truck back for the part. Then I have to send the truck back out to fix it. And it's chaos. And we're fighting fires all the time." And I said to the guy, I said, "Well, what do you mean? Like, there's HP OpenView, BMC Patrol, IBM Tivoli." And he said, yeah. But you don't understand. Those are single tenant enterprise solutions. There is nothing multi-tenant built for the channel so that we can proactively monitor and manage our customers' IT. And I just went, that's crazy. This is a massive opportunity that needs to be filled. And so I went out and did my research. I quickly understood that this guy was actually a true innovative person, and his thought process was far ahead of the rest of the channel, who just felt like they were IT heroes. They love showing up with a screwdriver, fixing something. The customer says, "Thank you, you're the best." And the fact that they were firefighters and their profitability and utilization rates were terrible, that's just the business they were in. And I thought, well, you know what? This one fellow gets it. The other 99 people I talked to didn't, but the economics of doing this would just make so much sense that every service provider would eventually want these types of automation tools.
And so there's a question that you had asked that VAR those 22, 23 years ago that I just want to kind of highlight as a key. This is giving me, I'm getting a takeaway right off the bat, right at the top of the session, which is, what could you do to fundamentally transform your business? And it seems like such a simple thing to ask a question, but I'm a big fan of Tom Patterson, as many people know, and Tom was really fond of saying that there is great power in a well-timed question. And getting that question in front of that VAR, like you mentioned, it was a half second before he went, like, I got to get proactive. I got to have a way to be able to be proactive instead of reactive, get out of fighting fires, lower my costs of goods sold because of truck costs and labor and wasted time and things like that. That question, I would imagine, drives quite a bit of your strategic planning. Like, what can we do to fundamentally transform your business? Is that a secret weapon question there?
It totally is, and it's one that we should be asking ourselves as business owners and business executives. We should be asking ourselves that question every single day, because to me, everything's a continuous improvement program. And even once you think you're smart and you're a rock star, you're really not. Because somebody smarter than you is coming up behind you. So you better be constantly asking yourself that question, and how can I do things better and smarter going forward?
So thinking about the problem that you had mentioned there, one of the strategic questions that you asked yourself was, how can we create high growth businesses without losing that customer loyalty? Another way that you phrased it was, how do we create raving fans. And I love that term, raving fans. Talk to me about this conversation and about the history of Enable. I pulled up a little bit of basic history about Enable, but walk us through this. Walk us through what happened next after you talked with that VAR at the Christmas party.
Well, this was, we had to invent this platform, right? Because it didn't exist. So we had to really understand what was required, and we had to put a team of engineers together to build this. But the first thing in any business is get the right people in the right seats. So you got an idea, that's great, but now you need people to execute on that idea. And so I founded the idea, and then hired a management team to execute on the idea. And I was initially chairman, and then later on the board asked me to become CEO. But this was really about, how do we get together a group of advisors, which we did. We got together a really strong group of forward-thinking IT service providers who got the concept of when we looked at the Gartner process maturity model, and you understood where they were, then we wanted to see, okay, great, how do we help them evolve? But as with the slide you've got up, one of my favorite books is Jim Collins' Good to Great. And these 5 principles really have always stuck with me. So the first thing that I want to understand is making sure that I want a great idea, but I've got to have the leadership team, and we have to have a clear vision, build a clear vision of what we want, and we have to be the best in the world at what we're going to do. So there's no prize in my mind for second place. You want to be the best in the world at what you do, and it might not be in your business in the world. It might be in your local community or your state or whatever it may be. But you want to be the best at what you are doing, and you need to have the right people in the right seats in order to do that. And I know that's challenging and it's tough, but at the executive level, you've got to make sure you've got the right people in the right seats. And sometimes you got to shuffle, and that's okay also. You just got to keep working towards it. And the concept of good being the enemy of great. It's easy to be good. It's really hard to be great. And that's where you have to be asking yourself those types of questions all the time about what can I do to continue to fundamentally give myself an unfair competitive advantage over all the other people that are playing in my space. So it's, and when you do that, you also really look at what are what's happening in the business and facing the brutal truths. And that's something that a lot of people have a hard time doing. They want to, masquerade the bad stuff and just focus on the good stuff. You have to really understand, if you want to be the best in the world at everything at what you're doing, then you have to understand where you do have weaknesses and what you need to do to go ahead and fix those. And then the idea of the key principles about just understanding, what do you want to be the best in the world at? What are you really passionate about? And getting the team around that passion. And then what are your key economic drivers for your business? And that might be revenue per customer. That might be a combination of low churn rate, high customer acquisition, high contract size. But you have to figure out what that is, and then be able to measure against those things in a very quick and agile way.
Yeah. And so Jim is one of those thought leaders that if you're not familiar with Jim Collins' work, I'm sorry for the rock that you have been hiding under. Get out there and consume them. But there's such powerful principles on there, that desire to be the best. And then I heard you state, which is straight out of Tom's work, make the vision clear. If people don't know where you're headed, how are they going to know which direction to start rowing in, right? And that's the key piece of around right people, right seats. You could have everyone in the right chair, but if they don't know where they're going, everybody's left open to interpretation. You're causing havoc. And that another one that really, really hits home with me is just when you're talking about brutal facts, that the truth will set you free. And it can be difficult. And one of the a book I'm a huge fan of is The Energy Bus, which introduced that concept of cheerleader in chief, right? One of the chief executive officer's biggest roles is to be the cheerleader for the organization, then keep everyone positive and reinforce the vision in a positive, motivating way. But you have to be willing to talk about brutal, hard truths and get them out into the room so they can be dealt with. Because if you leave them behind too long, you're just getting hurt. You're just getting hurt. So the second step in that process that you and the Enable team was really asking yourself those important questions from good to great. What can we be the best at? What are we passionate about? What drives our economic engine? How did you guys go through getting answers to these questions? Was it a whiteboard on the wall? What did you guys do to create a space where you could tackle these sorts of questions?
Well, yeah, there was a lot of planning, and we had. I was fortunate to have, from my experience, and we had strategic advisors that also came in and helped us from a coaching and vision perspective to really be able to narrow our views down. And so, just to those points, being the world's leading multi-tenant RMM solution, that was easy. We were the first ones in the space. We invented it. And then, but the crazy part is then we had to educate the biggest hurdle was not inventing the technology, was educating the channel that this was a good idea for their business and their customers. So that was a real interesting one. And making our partners the world's most successful MSPs, that was part of our ethos, and it is in every one of my companies, that if the customer wins first, and I'll invest in that to help the customer win first, then I'll win also. But the customer's got to win first. And that's just kind of a truism for me. And then our economic driver was revenue per customer. So the more successful we made the customer, the more they became a crazy raving fan of our company, and the more of our products they would buy. So this just made it a win-win situation. So
you're on the same side of the fence, essentially. When they grow, you grow. It's a natural consequence of their growth.
Oh, absolutely. And in 2010, we spent, 2008 and 9, we spent a lot of time understanding, what were the roadblocks for the channel. We've given them this technology, we've given them university, we've given them all the sales and marketing material, all the training programs, everything. But there was still a roadblock for them to get all of their customers in a managed environment, because still 80% of them were not managed. They were still on time and material contracts. So we redesigned our platform, spent millions of dollars redesigning our platform to come out with a freemium model that we gave to all of our customers. And this was free licensing, so they could go and do an audit, show the customer where they had issues, where they're going to have issues with their IT, and they could upsell and cross-sell them services. And that we gave $72 million of software away for free. And I remember our executives looking at me saying, "Gavin, are you crazy? You're going to sink the company." And I said, "Well, it's my company, and guess what? We're going to make our partners successful, and this is how we're going to do it." And our partners, their KPIs went through the roof. So you can see the percentage of managed customers that went from 20% being managed and 80% being time and material and break fix still. And then all of a sudden that flipped. In 2 years, it went from 20/80 to 80/20. So 80% managed and only 20%. And that's where pure play MSPs really came in, where they just said, you know what, we're going all fixed fee for all of our customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was very transformative. And so what happened, of course, with fixed fee is the profitability of a traditional VAR was about 3.5% EBITDA. And then it went up to 15. Some of the partners were 25, 35%. Like you talk to a Gary Pica as an example, or, you know, I can name you a ton of them. Their profits went through the roof on the program. So this was so advantageous, and all of a sudden the MSPs stopped being firefighters. They started having a business that they could manage. They could take weekends off. And you think if you had a $5 million turnover business and you were earning 3.5% EBIT, you're basically, you know, earning $150,000 a year. Congratulations.
Yeah. Why are you doing all that work for pennies on the dollar?
Right. And if you're earning, you know, 20% EBIT, well, guess what? You're earning millions of dollars. And who doesn't want that? So that's what drives me, actually. That's what makes me most excited, is when I can help business owners really improve their business model. And that's the whole thing with Enable, was about how do we help you proactively and manage your customer's environment, increase your productivity, your profitability, your utilization rate. And of course, this goes directly to the value of your business when you're selling it, because the more recurring revenue you have, the higher you go into a whole new rocket of valuation. And of course, the higher your EBIT, then your multiple goes way up. And if you have growth and EBIT, then again, you get a force multiplier on your M&A valuation. So that was exciting.
So for the folks who are on the call, kind of this key question that you can ask yourself, but you don't have to only gather that perspective from just you. You can ask current clients, what do they care about? One of my favorite questions that I would do in my old MSP is ask clients, why did you hire us? And why do you keep working with us? So just creating and removing assumptions can be incredibly powerful when it comes down to figuring out this strategic plan, figuring out the measurables that your clients will judge you on. You don't have to guess all the time. You can create some reasonable assumptions, but then go validate them. So the step 4 that you followed, Gavin, is plan, review, and adjust. You talk through creating operating plans, processes, KPIs that measure everything from one-off projects, deliverables, who the client is, who the owner of the client business is, their expectations, timelines, everything has to happen. And I love this 3-step process that you have around plan, review, adjust, which is, hey, measure and adjust, have weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual cadence, be agile, fail quick, right? If you're going to mess up, fail fast, and keep it simple, stupid. The glorious KISS method of doing it. I want to focus on that last one, keeping it simple, because technology in general is complex. There's a reason MSPs exist. It's because most people just want to, like, please God, don't make me learn this computer anymore. Why can't I just send an email? Nobody that we're hiring wants to talk tech. They want to be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or a construction manager or whatever it is that drives their passion. That's what they want to do. They use the technology to do what they do. They don't want to use the technology. It's a means to an end, not the end. Whereas for us as technologists, the technology is the end. That's what we like. That's what gets us going. How was Enable able to keep everything simple in a naturally complex industry like technology? How did you guys make sure to break it down and keep it simple?
So it's a super interesting question, Ian, because I am a metrics nut. And so those key drivers that we talked about initially, what do you want to be the best in the world about? What are you passionate about? What's your key economic driver? Everything has to feed into those three. Everything you do in your business has to have a direct arrow back to those. And if it doesn't, then you shouldn't be doing it and you shouldn't be talking about it. Just that principle alone helps you understand all the things you should not be doing, or all the great ideas that are put forward that are terribly exciting, but you should not touch them because they don't go back to those core values and core principles. So that's a big way. The other way is when you are measuring, if you have your measurement systems, and we every one of my companies, we've had the same type of measurement systems, and we review them, the key metrics on a weekly basis. They feed into the monthly reports, which feed into the quarterly report, which feeds into the board report, and then our annual reports. And so we can see when things are not working properly, and we know ahead of time, usually before the problem occurs. And it's kind of like proactive monitoring of IT, right? The disk's it's at 99%. Whoops, we better do something about that. Or, it's the principle is almost the same, but it allows you to fail quickly, to adjust quickly, and to really keep things actually consistent. And when you have consistency, that is another simplicity factor, because you're not changing your directions all the time. You're actually measuring what's happening. You can make intelligent, informed decisions based on data, not anecdotal evidence, which is a terrible way to run a business.
Sticking to the facts instead of shooting from the hip. So using data-informed decisions instead of muscle and feel and gut instinct.
Right. If you're trying to build a business to scale, and again, I've built large private companies and large public companies, and you need to have the processes. And this applies to very small companies. It was like right after Enable, my daughter came out of university and wanted to start a digital marketing platform. And she's right out of university. And I said, great, let's do it. And in 5 years, she built a multinational company, and she had 180 employees around the world, UK, New York, Toronto. And we end up selling it to Advent, a $34 billion PE firm, because she had developed the metrics and the processes, and we call them the calculators, to understand exactly how everything should be done and how many arms, feet, legs were required in order to get everything done. And so her model was so simple because everybody knew from first thing in the morning to the end of the day exactly what they needed to do and how many services they needed to deliver. And that was so unique in the marketing industry world that she got paid a massive premium. And at the tender age of 30, she and her family were able to retire for life. So
that process and focus on process as a core strategy is an interesting and apt thing to bring up on this series. That by focusing in on process, by eliminating ambiguity and making it so that, hey, as long as you follow this as prescribed, you will get these outputs. And if you can dial in from how you handle a ticket to how you onboard a customer to how you manage that customer, if you get every part of your delivery and customer experience processed out, it'll spin out. As long as the inputs are the same, the output will be the same. And your customers will know exactly what to expect. And you've got alignment between sales and service. And that's what's going to create scale, because as you bring in new revenue from sales, you're not losing it out. You're not losing old revenue out the door because everyone's a raving fan, because everyone knows what to expect.
Well, absolutely. And Ian, so it's interesting. I'm going to bring something back from what we talked about a moment ago, which is, continually asking that question, what can I do to dramatically improve my business? And, and I love the way you've just framed that with, you get your processes down as an MSP, you nail them, you have consistent, repeatable processes, which is going to drive productivity gains and profitability. Awesome. So your business at this moment in time is operating beautifully. But then going back to the question that an MSP should be asking their customers is the owners of at their customer's business is, Mr. Customer, what's most important to you? What are you trying to do as a business that's going to accelerate your growth or differentiate your business from your competitors? And how can we, as your trusted IT service provider, help you achieve that goal? And I strongly believe, and if MSPs start having that level of conversation with their customers, and they start asking them, the obvious questions, what's most important to you about your information technology today, they're most probably going to actually start pointing at applications, because the applications is what makes the employees run. And the better the applications and more integrated they are, the higher the performance of the employees. It's got little to do with the network now. It's mostly about the applications, the application layer. And
it's definitely a changing environment, and the making sure that you're having those strategic conversations about what's important to you, Mr. Customer, what are you focusing on? And I would even say that if you can drop technology from the question, what's most important to you? And the questions and answers can sometimes be shocking, but one of the interesting things that we had an accountant, and his biggest struggle was trying to schedule tax review sessions. It just was back and forth. They'd always get too busy, and then they'd forget to send out the emails and things like that. And we were like, you're using Office 365. Yeah, here, let me show you what bookings is. And let me show you how to set your calendar. You mean I can set my calendar up and people can choose the time that works for them? Yeah, you can even send them a virtual thing since you're not having people in your office. This was over the COVID-19 pandemic, and it fundamentally changed his business experience. It took us all of 30 minutes. It was a non-billable. It was just here you go. It's free. You're already paying for it. Here you go. Have a nice day. Let us know if it gives you any issues. That one thing transformed his life, eliminated massive business pain from him, because he said, well, we're just having trouble scheduling people. He didn't view it as a technology problem. It was an HR problem. It was an administrative problem. My administration is broken. You can't help me with my team. You're not my admin. Well, I'm not your admin, but I can eliminate this problem altogether with something you already bought. So get them out of the head if you can get your customers out of the head of thinking about what you do. If you make it so they don't pigeonhole you, oh, well, you're the guy who fixes my printer. Instead, it's hey, this is another CEO or another high-level executive, what have you. This is a trusted business partner who I can say, well, shooting straight, my admin's broken, and here's how it's broken, and it's costing me business, it's costing me time, it's costing me frustration. That's what opens the opportunity for heavy-hitting impact conversations. Making sure that I'm keeping us on track. You had mentioned this a little bit before about identifying roadblocks. Enable had 3. There was some issue with the perception where people liked break-fix services. You mentioned being the hero, like, yes, I showed up, I fixed it. Nobody was asking for managed services back in 2000. That was an enterprise term. Nobody knew what it was. They didn't think about fixed fee. IT guys were plumbers, right? You called when the sinks clogged. Well, you called when the printer was broke. There was no proactivity, and the MSP didn't know how to sell it either. Nobody knew what the metrics were. We didn't know what the processes were. We didn't realize that break, fix, and managed services were diametrically opposed, and you have to manage your teams fundamentally different. and it's different numbers to watch and incentivize. But there's a lot of range in these roadblocks. So how did you guys, you started to tick into this. How did you guys identify what the roadblocks were? And then how did you go around solving for them? Because you identified them, and then our very next slide here is how Enable solved them. But talk us through the process you went through to identify and solve for roadblocks.
Well, so in that initial discovery phase, after my chat with this $10 million a year VAR way back when, and then I went out and met with a whole bunch of VARs, solution IT service providers, whatever names we were going under back then, and realized right away, the first problem was they liked the break fix model. They didn't know how to sell. Like they were good order takers, but they were not great solution salespeople. And the customers were not asking for this type of service because, let's face it, back in 2000, the network wasn't really that critical yet. It was important, but not critical. If it went down for a day, it went down for a day. So there was different tension points. So we identified what we thought were the roadblocks, most of the roadblocks, right away, and we invested very heavily. Like we were one of the first Microsoft SharePoint deployments for our partner Enable University, our training. That was fun, let me tell you. But to set up a full training program, but we got 150 partners together. It started out as a smaller group of 10, then grew to 20, and then 50 and whatnot. And this was our partner advisory board. And same thing we did with Augmentt. We started right away with a partner advisory board. That was the first thing we did. And it was the same thing then. So get the use cases, understand how the businesses were functioning and what needed to be improved, because we had to build the product from the ground up for the channel. And so we needed the channel's input. We could be as innovative as we wanted to be, but it had to be based on understanding the processes, what they did today. We had to figure out how we could improve those processes and automate the process for the channel. So we needed the input. It was a fascinating experiment, and thank goodness it worked.
Yeah.
And then we knew we wanted to develop the industry-leading technology. So we hired a fantastic team of engineers, and we did not skimp on that investment at all. And then we went out and we leveraged the early wins. We got case studies. We got together all the sales and marketing material, and we really worked very, very hard at the education part. And honestly, I would say 50% of the MSPs who bought our platform bought it as much for the sales and marketing material as they did for the technology. Because we were so strong in helping the channel, because we knew that was critical. And then later on, we created this freemium model that I mentioned earlier, where we gave our partners $72 million of software for free, so they could go out to all their non-managed customers and they could do an audit, show them the problems, and help them understand why they should get on a managed program with them. And that took us a few years to figure out, and then we had to develop the technology and then roll it out. But it just dramatically impacted our partners' success and our success as a company.
So you took the strategy of selling to your customers' customers, which is something that I deeply, deeply believe in. If you're able to figure out how to sell the next down the line and improve that person's experience, right? So as Enable a software company, hey, we're going to help the doctors, the lawyers, the whoever, have a better experience. But the MSP can take that same sort of technique. Hey, Mr. Doctor, hey, Mr. Lawyer, hey, Mr. Accountant, how can I make your patients, your clients, your customers have a better experience working with your business? You've moved beyond vendor. You've moved beyond, oh, it's that company that I bought software from. Oh, it's that guy who I call when my printer breaks. Suddenly you have a raving lunatic fan because you're helping them make more money and retain more money.
Well, and that's the second part to your question that, from before, which is, when you as the MSP go to your customer on their quarterly business reviews, whatever, and you ask them that question, what do you need to do? What would you like to do to fundamentally improve your business next year and the next year and the next year? What steps do you think you need to take, or what initiatives do you want to do? And let them talk and get that feedback. And because he's got nobody else to speak with, right?
Mm-hmm.
He or she, they go home and their spouse has heard about their business enough. They don't want to hear anymore. And the lawyer is just going to bill them every time he speaks to them, and the accountant's just going to say no. So there's nobody else to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
So to go in and be that ear and have that sympathetic, empathetic conversation, and let the person talk about their vision and where they want to take their company and what they want to do. And then the second part being just what you said, being terrific. So how can we help you achieve that, and help you help your customers? And now you're having a whole different level of conversation. And you've got this business owner loves you. You're their new best friend because you're listening to them and you're helping them achieve their business goals and objectives. And you're going to help them win, and they're going to buy more services from you. And my prediction to every MSP out there is, you ask yourself these questions about your own business, and where do you think it will be 2, 3, 5 years from now, and what services do you think you will be delivering to your customers, or would you like to deliver to your customers? What do you want to be the best at? What do you want to be passionate about?
Mm-hmm.
This slide is, I think, the most interesting slide, and this was fundamentally built off the Gartner process maturity model. Whether a service provider was chaotic / break fix, or responsive, proactive, or managed. And then there's another category called optimized, which the channel had definitely no view into at that point. And that's basically everything all you can eat on a monthly subscription. So hardware, software, services, everything wrapped into a monthly per seat bill. And so the idea is you can just see, in a break fix firefighting model, the number of seats that are managed per tech being at 125, the utilization rate, the EBIT profitability of the business, and then the M&A value of the business. And this was we had accumulated this information over thousands of MSPs, and we measured again everything. And this is exciting, right? This is a real roadmap onto how you build your business and where do you want to be. So where are you today, and where would you like to be in your business? And again, think of this as the traditional network-based managed services. And now I just love when MSPs think, okay, now think about IT as hybrid IT, where you have your network-based IT and you have your cloud-based services. And that is all part of IT. And how do I help my customers with that?
Yep. Yeah. And then so the results of following this strategic process and making sure to go through to define those questions, figure out what drives your business plus your customer's business, review plan and modify as necessary, and then identify and remove roadblocks. That 6-step process that you've used across those multiple businesses. The results for Enable, We had service delivery. The service delivery improved. Utilization and capacity to manage more devices increased 3 to 4 times. Profitability went at least 3 times. Some people were finding 10x profit return. Value of their business for M&A increased 3 to 8 times. And those results cascaded to Enable. So Enable shared in this success because their partners grew. Enable also grew. And as everyone knows, sold to SolarWinds and now is back out on its own again. So the full circle is completed on that particular that particular endeavor. But what I want to focus on here is the results prove the process. How do you make sure that your leadership teams, your internal organization kind of buys in with, hey, you know, nobody likes to be told, look, you got to just trust me. I know what I'm doing, right? That rarely will motivate a team of highly qualified, highly independent individuals. How do you walk through, look, guys, we've got this process. We're going to build this industry-changing RMM. We're going to build this industry-changing cybersecurity tool. We're going to build this digital marketing platform. How do you step in and start that conversation and get them bought in to using this process and embracing it?
So Ian, the funniest part is I can honestly say in almost every one of my companies, when I would initially present the business opportunity and the plan, because these were all old industries that didn't change very quickly, and it doesn't matter if this could be in the marketing world, the industrial semiconductor world, financial services world, the IT services world. Everybody would say to me, "You're crazy." Yeah. You're there's no way that's ever going to work. That's ever going to happen. But I do my diligence, and if the economics of this solution should make crazy raving fans out of my customers. So I'm only going to build something, a business where people would be crazy not to buy my service. So that's a fundamental thing. If I don't think the product is going to be strong enough that everybody shouldn't want it, then I shouldn't build it. And RMM proved to be the case. Not necessarily mine, but everybody bought somebody's RMM. So the
concept was sound. Yeah.
Right, from 0 to 100%. And it's the same thing with Augmentt, RMM for SaaS security and SaaS management. I believe every single MSP within 5 years is going to have it. And we're bringing on over 100 partners a month right now. Look, here we go.
Yeah, speaking of partners, for being here, Gavin and the team have a pretty rich offer. If you look here, you can go to try.augmentt.com/RR-100 free. There's about 2,000. Gavin he's already mentioned he's a big fan of giving away stuff for people for forever. He gave away $72 million before. Let's see if we can't put him in the poorhouse this time. You've got $2,000 of annual licensing for free with all these different things. We'll come back to this slide, but Gavin, why don't you spend like 3-5 minutes here. Walk us through what is Augmentt. Talk us through your new endeavor and what you guys are doing for the channel. What is it? Why should people be looking at it? You kind of been hinting at it that the application layer is that next horizon. And I 100% agree. Someone who's starting a business today is going to grab themselves an M365 or a Google subscription. They're going to grab some cheap laptops from wherever. They'll have 1 to 5 SaaS apps, whatever, some line of business stuff, a CRM, and they're going to hit the ground running. And the guy behind them, who has legacy servers, legacy everything, is so slow and a dinosaur, he can't move. So what's Augmentt solving for?
Well, and that's a great point. That example you just made is, that new company it doesn't have routers and switches and servers and that stuff. So they don't need a traditional MSP. Now they do need help with security for sure at the network around their office. And they do need security around all of their data, which is basically all in the cloud now, just in that example. And they do need to have those applications optimized. So our view is that, and this is quite funny because just before we sold Enable, we were about to rebuild the platform completely and add in SaaS security and SaaS management. So that was the next thing of RMM in our mind, was RMM for the network, then RMM for the application layer. So luckily for me, SolarWinds didn't pursue that. So after my venture with our eldest daughter, I was having dinner with my good friend and my partner Derek in this business, and we said, look, we were going to do it 5 years ago. ServiceNow is doing $6 billion a year in SaaS sales. There's no multi-tenant solution for the channel. So what we did is we've created a remote monitoring and management platform, an RMM for SaaS security and SaaS management, so MSPs can manage the network and the devices like they always have with their traditional RMM. And now they can use Augmentt to secure and manage the cloud application layer. So this is just a natural progression for every MSP who does network. Now they should be doing the cloud services, and now they're monitoring and securing hybrid IT, which is what every company has today. And we all know, right? Particularly with COVID, everybody went out of the office, everybody adopted all these applications, and where is the customer's data? The customer's data is everywhere. It's in all sorts of unsecure applications. When the employee leaves, they shut down the app and the data is lost forever. And that could
that was one of the things. There's been a lot of interest in chat about compliance, and I was a big compliance guy at my MSP. We were CFR 45 shop. It's a HIPAA healthcare focused entity. But one of the things you just mentioned there is that people's data is everywhere. For those on the call, if you're not having people just write down as a simple exercise, hey, let's write down everyone you interact with, big, small, whatever. And sure, janitor, yeah, that's a vendor. Like your credit card processor, that's a vendor. But you get them thinking about it, and they're going to start writing down website after website after website after website. And just expand a couple columns. Like, okay, what is it? It's a website. All right. Who uses it? Everyone. Okay. What type of data do you store in there? Oh, well, oh, wow. Yeah, there's social security numbers. There's addresses. There's names. There's whatever. Oh, and you're the one who put it in there, right? Not the customer? Yeah. Then you're the one holding the bag from your customers if that third party has a problem. So even if it's out of your control, out of your system, something you can't back up, you don't have visibility into, you can't control their security policy, you need to be having conversations. So this application first MSP, this is a big idea core strategy. This is that fundamental shift back in 2000, isn't it? This is the same thing.
Absolutely is. Like, this is what the customer cares about today. Like, he does not care, or she does not care about routers and switches and servers, that kind of stuff. They care about what applications are my employees using? How productive are they? Are these applications supporting my customer initiatives properly? And are they giving me a competitive advantage out there? So all the data is in the cloud. Now the cloud, the applications are the new endpoints. And this is just a natural progression of traditional network-based managed services to add managed and security cloud services. And so to me, it's such a natural extension for the channel, but it is so critical because within 5 years, I believe 80% of an MSP's revenue will come from cloud security, SaaS management, and the administration of those applications. And then the smart people will also do DevOps in key applications. Your example with the accounting firm that's DevOps, right?
Yep.
In Microsoft, you did a little DevOps project and you transformed their business and their lives. And
Yep.
you look at Salesforce, you look at QuickBooks, you look at Microsoft. So this is a central RMM for SaaS security and SaaS management. There's a big emphasis on M365 security policy and posture management around all the security policies. Again, central pane of glass, one single view across all of your customers. Who's got MFA on? If somebody doesn't, send me a ticket, get it to go to my PSA, and then my guys will fix that right away. And great, we've got MFA across all of our customers. Password management, onboarding employees, offboarding employees in an automated fashion, so it takes seconds rather than hours. So all of those productivity gains. Back to that graph and today it's not how many devices can a tech manage, it's how many seats can they manage. And what we want to do is with automation, getting the MSPs from a reactive SaaS management and security, we want to get them to proactive and to manage. And we want to help them go from 200 seats per tech up to 2,000 seats per tech. And that's where they're going to be making their high profit margins and really supporting the customer's business, because it's the business applications that are running their business. It's not the network, and it's not routers and switches, it's business applications.
Well, I'm just highlighting the conversation there when, I've talked to plenty of MSPs, and even I would get scared. Someone starts saying DevOps and applications, you go, I'm not a programmer, I'm an infrastructure guy. I'm not I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to do that. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about using the basic user and administrative interfaces to help your clients do things better. We're not talking about or advocating becoming programmers or building applications. If you've got that particular skill set, congratulations, that's awesome. But we're talking about helping clients do things better in their applications. So I know right now we're about 3 minutes out, and I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time for questions. One question that we did have that came in was, and this is for you, Gavin, is when things were like, what happens when things are going wrong with that planning methodology? So you've got this plan, you've built it out, and in the infamous Mike Tyson quote, then you get punched in the face. What do you guys do to handle that?
Oh, sure. You mean like 2007, 2008?
Yeah. So like a recession happens. Oh, wow.
That's right, the Great Recession, and everybody squeezes their pocketbooks together, and they say, "I'm not spending a penny." And then I have to say, "Honey, I hope you don't mind. I have to write another payroll check for $400,000." And yes, those times did happen, and that's part of your business plan. So make sure you have a good business plan, make sure you have a good operational plan, make sure you understand your key metrics, you have the proper cash flow to be able to weather the storms, because black swan events will happen, and you need to be prepared for that. And when things go wrong, to me, that's an opportunity, because that's when you get smarter. It was like starting Enable right after the .com crash. And everybody says, what? You're trying to raise money for a tech company? Are you insane? Nobody's going to give you a penny. And so, we personally funded the company, and that was exciting and tough initially, until we got the proof of concepts going and everything else.
So the smart business planning, hope for the best, plan for the worst, and make sure that you get everyone in alignment is kind of the key things. We're under a minute here, so I do have to reserve these last 30 seconds for a bit of housekeeping. If you happen to be watching this later and you've got a process to share, we'd love to hear from you. Schedule some time with me. You can share your process. We'll go through some logistics, and we'd be happy to put you on the series. And thanks to everyone who tuned in live or who is viewing this on demand. If you want to connect with Gavin, he's active on LinkedIn. You can go to augmentwith2ts.com. Augmentt with 2 T's. Make sure your phone doesn't autocorrect it, as mine was trying to do when I was visiting the website earlier today. And thank you for attending. If you're interested in talking with Carrie or I, we're at r&r.consulting, or you can email us connect@r&r.consulting. And Gavin, I just really want to thank you for putting the channel and all the viewers first and coming on to share how you've built all these businesses. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And anybody who has any questions, please do feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right. With that, everyone, we hope you have a great rest of Thursday. Gavin, until next time, we'll talk soon.
À la prochaine.